The idea of we need a whole new person, a kind of person in the White House that is going to fight for the people.
What are you going to do about it?
This makes no sense.
What are you going to do about it, Michael?
Well, what I and millions of others are doing, we are going to be active every single day.
Yes, on November 8th, you, Joe Blow, Steve Blow, Bob Blow, Billy Bob Blow, all the blows get to go and blow up the whole goddamn system.
This has to change. I will not tolerate this happening one more time in my lifetime.
Trump's legal troubles are piling up faster than his unpaid contractors. At least that's what Michael Moore said in his latest TV appearance that has Trump and his supporters absolutely shocked. Moore went on to call Trump's entire empire a house of cards built on grievance and alternative facts. The filmmaker didn't just criticize Trump's politics, he attacked the very foundation of Trump's identity as a successful businessman and left the former president raging at his TV screen. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Ever wonder how a guy who bankrupted casinos convinced America he's a business genius? The answer might shock you, or maybe not if you've been paying attention. Michael Moore just went on a truth-telling spree that has Donald Trump throwing one of his famous Twitter tantrums. For years, Trump has paraded around like he's the king of business deals. You know the type.
And to think about that we have somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to be the voice of, we have two full generations now of millennials and Gen Zers.
They might be penniless, they might be homeless, they might be over and up. It doesn't matter because it's equalized on that day.
Oligarchy versus democracy. And that introduced, it's starting to feel, I don't know, I should say this, it's way too early to talk about 2028 yet. Everybody's thinking about what we're going to do next year.
The guy who walks into a room and acts like he owns it, even though he probably owes money on the furniture. Moore wasn't having any of it though, calling Trump's business ventures the financial equivalent of a reality show. Ouch, that's gotta hurt coming from someone who doesn't mind telling it like it is. Let's be real, this man lost money running casinos. Casinos, those places where drunk people literally throw their money at you and say, keep the change. How do you mess that up? It's like owning a chocolate shop where the chocolate makes itself, but somehow our former president managed to bankrupt not just one casino, but multiple. It's almost impressive if it wasn't so sad.
It's like, I don't know, how do you explain this to your viewers in the UK? You know, when whoever has the most points wins, right?
And yet millions stayed home. That's on the Democrats. And that has to change. We need people running for office as independents like Bernie does. He does just fine. Now, maybe in your state or your city, that's not the best thing to do.
They want another election. It ain't gonna happen because you use the ballot as an anger management tool.
But wait, there's more. Remember Trump University? That's the place where students paid thousands of dollars to learn the secrets of success from a guy who apparently doesn't know them himself. Moore called it exactly what it was, a fraudulent venture that tricks students into emptying their wallets. It's like paying to learn swimming from someone who's secretly wearing water wings. And let's not forget about Trump steaks, because nothing says trust me with the nuclear codes like a guy who couldn't successfully sell meat to Americans. We're a country that puts bacon on everything, including our ice cream, for crying out loud. How do you fail at selling steak? That's like failing at selling oxygen to people who breathe. The gold sneakers, though? That's where things get really tacky. Moore pointed out how Trump is constantly trying to squeeze money out of his supporters with overpriced merchandise. Those golden kicks weren't just ugly, they were a perfect symbol of Trump's whole business approach. Flashy on the outside, probably falling apart on the inside, and definitely not worth what people paid for them. But here's where Moore really hit the nail on the head. Trump's entire brand isn't actually built on success, it's built on grievance. Every time one of his businesses tanks, and there have been many, it's never ever his fault. It's the economy, or the Democrats, or the deep state, or probably space aliens if he could make that stick. Trump has mastered the art of failing upward by convincing people that his failures are actually victories being stolen from him by mysterious enemies. It's genius in its own twisted way. When Trump's airline crashed and burned financially, it wasn't because he ran it into the ground. It was because the industry was against him. When Trump vodka disappeared faster than ice in the desert, it wasn't because nobody wanted to drink something with his face on it. It was because the alcohol industry was rigged. See the pattern? Moore laid it all out, showing how Trump's image as a successful businessman was carefully constructed through reality TV and aggressive self-promotion. It's like those Instagram influencers who rent private jets for photos but actually fly coach. The difference is that most of those influencers don't end up with the nuclear codes. What's really happening now is that Trump's carefully crafted illusion is starting to crumble under the weight of actual facts. Moore's takedown wasn't just about politics, it was about exposing the man behind the golden curtain. And it turns out he's not the Wizard of Oz. He's more like the guy who sold Dorothy fake ruby slippers that fell apart as soon as she clicked her heels. Speaking of frauds being exposed, what if I told you the loudest anti-immigrant voice in America comes from a family that's practically fresh off the boat themselves? The man who's built his entire political brand screaming "Build the wall" has a family tree with roots so shallow you could trip over them walking to get your morning coffee. When Michael Moore dropped the ancestral receipts on Trump during his TV appearance, he didn't just point out hypocrisy, he took a wrecking ball to the foundation of Trump's political persona. Moore reminded everyone of a simple truth that somehow gets overlooked in all the MAGA madness. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants. But apparently that basic fact skipped over Trump's brain cells when he decided to launch his political career by talking about immigrants in this vicious, vile way.
Well, it's not a proud day for this country. How could it be a proud day when a man who was not elected by the people becomes president of the United States? How does that happen?
They see that the elites who ruined their lives hate Trump. Corporate America hates Trump. Wall Street hates Trump. The career politicians hate Trump.
You look at every poll on the issues, the majority of Americans agree with Bernie and me and AOC.
Tottenham 2, Chelsea 1. Who won that game? I'm just asking you factually. Who won that game?
In that case, Tottenham.
Tottenham won.
The orange man standing on stage ranting about dangerous foreigners. His own grandfather, Friedrich Trump, was literally a German immigrant who crossed the ocean looking for that sweet, sweet American opportunity. And find it he did, making his fortune running restaurants and hotels during the Klondike Gold Rush. I guess entrepreneurial immigrants building businesses and creating wealth was totally fine when it was Trump's own family doing it. But wait, there's more. Trump's anti-immigrant family tree just keeps growing new hypocritical branches. Moore pointed out that Trump's mother was an immigrant from Scotland who came to America for, you guessed it, economic opportunity. The exact same motivation Trump now demonizes in others. The same guy who talks about criminal aliens and bad hombres is walking around with immigrant DNA from multiple countries. It's like finding out the president of the Flat Earth Society has a globe collection in his basement. And the chef's kiss of contradiction. The current Mrs. Trump, that would be wife number 3 if you're keeping score at home, is also an immigrant. Melania Trump, formerly of Slovenia, stands by her husband's side while he spews rhetoric that would have kept her own family out if implemented earlier. As Moore noted, this makes Trump's anti-immigrant stance even more absurdly hypocritical. It's like watching someone with a "vegetarians are evil" tattoo while they're chomping on a garden salad. But the real genius of Trump's immigrant bashing isn't just that he doesn't apply those standards to his own family. According to Moore, it's that Trump knowingly exploits these fears while simultaneously benefiting from immigrant labor at his own properties. Trump has employed countless immigrants at his hotels, resorts, and construction projects, all while telling his followers that immigrants are destroying America. It's classic Trump, profit privately from the very thing you publicly condemn. Moore didn't pull any punches when explaining how Trump pulls this off, stating that Trump knows how to manipulate a dumbed-down population. That's the secret sauce of Trumpism, the ability to get people to ignore the glaring contradictions right in front of their faces. The descendants of immigrants cheering as Trump demonizes new immigrants is like watching people applaud while the house they're sitting in burns down. The most damning part of Moore's takedown was exposing that Trump's entire anti-immigrant platform is a house of cards built on a foundation of pure hypocrisy. This isn't just about catching Trump in another contradiction, it's about revealing the fundamental dishonesty at the core of his political identity. A man whose grandfather, mother, and current wife are all immigrants, somehow positioning himself as America's great defender against immigration is like a guy whose whole family works at McDonald's claiming he's leading the fight against fast food. Trump managed to build his entire brand on never paying his debts, to contractors, to banks, and now to society itself. But as Moore pointed out, the legal system has finally caught up with Donnie Diapers in spectacular fashion. When you've spent decades treating the law like it's just a suggestion for other people, eventually those chickens come home to roost. And boy, are those chickens angry. For years, Trump has created this image of being untouchable. He's like that kid in school who convinces everyone his dad owns Nintendo so nobody can touch him. But Moore ripped that facade wide open during his TV appearance, revealing what happens when a lifetime of ducking consequences finally catches up with you. This man's legal team probably has a group chat labeled Code Red always, Moore quipped, painting a picture of Trump's attorneys permanently living in crisis mode. Can you imagine those poor lawyers' phones constantly blowing up with notifications?
The fact that twice in 16 years that the candidate who lost gets to walk into that house down the street.
And on November 8th, Election Day, although they lost their jobs, although they've been foreclosed on by the bank, next came the divorce, and now the wife and kids are gone. The car's been repoed.
People that by the millions stayed home on November 5th, and that cost us the election. There's more of us than there are of them.
Only to find out that if you vote to leave Europe, you actually have to leave Europe. And now they regret it.
Sir, please stop tweeting about the judge. Sir, threatening witnesses is actually a crime. Sir, we've discussed this. You can't fire the Supreme Court. Moore didn't hold back when discussing the sheer volume of Trump's legal woes, pointing out that he's facing more courtroom appearances than campaign stops. That's not exactly the campaign strategy they teach in political science 101. While other candidates are kissing babies and eating corn dogs at state fairs, Trump is busy shopping for courtroom ties and practicing his "I've never committed a crime in my life" face in the mirror. The filmmaker drew a perfect parallel between Trump's mounting legal troubles and his notorious history with contractors. According to Moore, nobody that's called consequences. You don't get to spend decades bending the rules, stiffing contractors, and playing fast and loose with campaign funds and not have it catch up to you eventually. It's like Trump has been running a tab with the justice system his entire life, and now the bartender is cutting him off and demanding payment. What's really fascinating is how Trump's old playbook of delay, deny, and distract just isn't working anymore. Moore noted that the more he flails, the more obvious it becomes that the magic is gone. Courts are moving forward despite his tantrums, judges aren't buying his excuses, and even his most loyal supporters are starting to look like they're getting tired of the same old song and dance. Trump's victim mentality got a special roasting from Moore, who mocked, "When you don't get to spend decades bending rules without consequences." It's the perfect encapsulation of Trump's worldview, that being held accountable for your actions is somehow unfair if you're rich and famous enough. Imagine thinking that facing consequences for your actions is persecution rather than, you know, how society works for literally everyone else. Moore delivered one of his most devastating comparisons when he described Trump as a reverse Midas. Everything he touches turns into a lawsuit. Instead of the golden touch, Trump has the subpoena touch. Instead of turning things into gold, he turns them into legal fees. The man has spawned more lawsuits than a slip and fall at a banana factory. The best part, the legal mess. Oh, the delicious, never-ending legal mess, Moore continued, clearly enjoying Trump's discomfort. At this point, Trump's lawsuit should have their own reality show, Law and Disorder, The Trump Chronicles. Now, that's a show that would definitely beat The Apprentice in the ratings. But the real insight came when Moore explained why Trump's contractor problem is the perfect metaphor for his entire approach to the law. Just as he stiffed countless contractors over the decades, Trump has been refusing to pay his debts to society until forced to do so. He treats legal obligations the same way he treats financial ones, as inconveniences to be avoided until absolutely impossible to ignore. Moore compared Trump to a reality show contestant who's been voted off but refuses to leave the stage. The audience has moved on, the producers are trying to start the next segment, but there's Trump still grabbing the microphone and insisting he won. It would be sad if it weren't so dangerous to our democracy. So Trump's reaction to Moore's takedown was exactly what you'd expect from our Orange-in-Chief. He went full caps lock crazy on social media, desperately claiming he barely knows who Moore is, despite the filmmaker living rent-free in his head for years. This meltdown perfectly caps off Moore's brilliant dismantling of the Trump myth. Trump's entire persona is crumbling faster than his Diet Coke-stained suit pants. The funny thing is, no amount of all caps ranting can save him now. His social media tantrums are just pathetic attempts to convince his dwindling supporters that the emperor isn't naked as a jaybird. Trump's furious reaction proves Moore struck a nerve. When your only defense is fake news and pretending not to know your critics, you've already lost the argument. Donnie Diapers is finally facing his ultimate nightmare, becoming irrelevant while the world points and laughs.